Hello everyone, how are you? I hope you are doing great and welcome to the part 6 of our Java Basic series. Now, if you haven't watched our previous parts yet, please make sure you watch them, right? Now, in this session, we are going to learn about type conversion. What are the different types of conversion we have and with each and every example. Okay, now before jumping into this type conversion concept, I want to quickly recap use some things. Those are nothing but data types. We have learned it in previous class, right? Data types. What are the data types have? Integer, okay, for storing integer values. Then we have float and double for storing decimal values. And we have character, which can be assigned by single quotes. And we have boolean, which are true or false. Now, for learning type conversion, we need to just revise what are integer and decimal format, right? Now, first let's revise integer format. In integer format, we have four types, right? The first thing is byte. The size of it is 1 byte. And next we have short. The size of it is 2 bytes, right? Next we have int. The size of this is 4 bytes. And finally we have long. The size of this is 8 bytes. This is integer format. Now coming to decimal format, we have two things, right? The first one is float, which is of 4 bytes. Thing is we have double, which is of 8 bytes. Right. Now, what is this 1 byte, 2 bytes, 4 bytes, and 8 byte means? For suppose we have to store the integer value which is 1. 1 is very smaller value, right? So that we can store it in byte. For suppose we need to store 5 or 10. It is somewhat bigger value, so that we can use short to store that value. Now, if the value is somewhat more bigger, for suppose let's say 100 or 500, we can store that in int. If the value is so much bigger, like say 50,000 or 1 lakh, we can store that in long, right? Uh, Let me explain how can we store it. If the value is too smaller, we can store it in byte. Byte b is equal to 1. Okay. If the value is somewhat larger, we can store it in short. Short s is equal to, let's say, 5. Right. Now don't worry why I'm keeping this b or s. You can keep anything. Right. Now int a is equal to 100. Okay. Now long, if the value is too much bigger, let's say the value is 50,000, okay, then we have to use long. But for using long, the condition is after the value we need to mention the suffix as l. This is mandatory for using long. Okay. Now this is integer format. Now coming to decimal format, we have float. Float is used to store smaller decimal values. Float f is equal to 4.5. Now for using float, we also need to mention the suffix as f. Right? For double it is not required. And double is used to store somewhat more bigger values. Double d is equal to, let's say, 45.7. Right? This is about data types, which is integer format and decimal format. Right? I hope you are clear with this, right? Now, before jumping into type conversion, I want to also revise about assigning, right? For suppose a is equal to 5. What I am doing here, I am simply assigning the value of 5 to a, right? We have another example, b is equal to 100. We are assigning this 100 to the value b. Now what if I do a is equal to b? Nothing but we are assigning the value of b to value of a. This is nothing but assigning concept. Right? I hope you are good. Now let's jump into type conversion. Before jumping into technical concept of type conversion, I want to explain what is happening in type conversion with some basic example, right? Now let me explain you that. Let's say we have two boxes here. One is a bigger box and other is a smaller box. Now, can I insert this smaller box into bigger box? Right? We can insert it, right? Because it is smaller in dimensions. It is smaller in the size. So that we can insert this into the longer box. Now, can we insert this bigger into longer one? No, we cannot insert, right? Because this size is bigger than this box. But there is one way that we can insert this bigger box into smaller box. How can we do that? By reducing the size of it, right? So that let me reduce the size of it. Let me reduce more. Now can I insert it? Yes, I'm able to insert it, right? Now after reducing the size of the larger box, we can insert into the smaller box. Please remember this concept. The similar concept we are going to use in type conversion. Okay. Now type conversion is of two types. One is implicit conversion. Second one is explicit conversion. Right? This explicit conversion is also known as typecasting. Okay. In type conversion, we have two concepts. We have two types. One is implicit conversion and other thing is explicit conversion. Now what is this implicit conversion? What is this explicit conversion? Let's learn by taking some examples. Okay. First, suppose I have int a is equal to 56 and byte b is equal to 127. Right. Now what I am doing is I am assigning b to a. Now is this possible? What I am doing here, I am just assigning b to the variable a. Is this possible? Yes, it is possible. Why it is possible? What is b here? B is of byte type, right? What is the size of byte type here? 1 byte, right? Now what is a here? A is of int type, right? Now what is the size of int? It is 4 bytes. Means we are storing this 1 byte into 4 bytes. It is possible, right? Just we are storing b into a. B is the size of 1 byte and a is the size of 4 bytes. Now we are storing this b into a. This is possible, right? This is conversion. This is known as implicit conversion because we are not doing explicitly anything. It's directly getting stored because b is of smaller size means it is of smaller box and a is of bigger size means it is of bigger box. We can store the smaller box into bigger box. Now let us do b is equal to a. Is this possible now? A is of type of int and what is the size? 4, right? Now b is of type of byte and the size of it is 1. Now we are storing the value 4 into 1. It is not possible, right? Because 4 is a larger value means it is a larger box and b is a smaller value means it is smaller box. We are trying to store bigger box into smaller box. It cannot be done, right? But what we have done in the case of boxes, we reduced the larger box size to fit into smaller box. Similarly, here also we can do this. How we can do this? We have to convert the a is int type, right? We have to explicitly convert into byte type by doing like this, right? B is equal to byte of a means a is int, right, generally, but before storing it into b, we are converting it into byte so that both will become of equal sizes and we can store it in b. And this is known as explicit conversion, right? I hope you understood. Let's also discuss with other example. Let's say float f is equal to 4.5f and double d is equal to 45.56. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to say d is equal to f means in the value of float, we want to store it in double. What is the size of float? It is of 4 bytes, right? And double, it is of 8 bytes. Now we are storing this 4 bytes into 8 bytes so that it is possible. So that it is known as implicit conversion again. Now what if I want to store double in float value? Here double is 8 bytes, right? Now float is of only 4 bytes. Now I am storing bigger box into smaller box here. It is possible? It is not possible, right? But to do this, to make it possible, we need to explicitly convert it. We need to explicitly convert the double into float. How can we do that? FLOAT, float. Just before assigning this D to F, we are converting this D to float type. And this is known as explicit conversion. I hope you have got a good grip on this implicit conversion and what is explicit conversion means. Now you can see here I have done in same data types, right? Int n byte or of same data types. We are only storing integers here. Now float and double are of same data types. We are only storing decimal values here. Now this implicit conversion and explicit conversion can also happen in different data types. Let's see the example for them. For suppose I have int n is equal to 10 and we have double d is equal to, we are storing this n into double, right? Here we are storing this n into this double d. Now here n is what? It is what type? It is of int type, right? Now what is the size of it? The size of it is 4 bytes, right? Now what is the size of d here? It is of double type, so that the size of it is 8 bytes. Now we are putting this n, which is of 4 bytes, into the 8 bytes. It is possible, right? So that it is implicit conversion. Now what if I want to do like this, right? I have another example here. Double d is equal to, let's say 10.99, and I want to do int n is equal to d. Now d is of what type? It is of double type, right? Means it have the size of 8 bytes. Int is of n is of int type, means it have size of 4 bytes. Now what we are trying to do here, we are trying to put 8 bytes into 4 bytes. We are trying to put the larger box into smaller box. It is not possible, right? So that to make it possible, we need to explicitly cast it. But before storing this d into integer thing, we need to cast it to integer. Now this is known as explicit conversion. Now, I hope you got a good grip on what is this implicit conversion, right? Now this is for today's class. Now I want you to say something. From next class, along with the concepts, I will explain a problem at the end, right? This is what I want to tell. Thank you.